Welcome to the Family Pictures Podcast. I'm Michael Branson Smith here with
a freshly groomed Jim Groom.
Jim Groom, you're looking suave. And just so you know, if I happen to nod off during this podcast, and if I happen to say something like buttered muffins, I'm just, hungry and happy to be here as we talk our 71st episode with Mike Leigh's Life is Sweet. What a sweet life it is.
Yeah, the working class in Britain never had it so good.
North London in what is it? It's a terraced house. Like this is okay. So there's no production notes for this movie. So instead I was going to talk about what happens to me and how I lose 3 hours to watching an hour and a half movie. And that includes when I see the row houses in London, I'm like, oh, there's got to be Britishisms for things like this. And sure enough, there were terraced houses back then. And then those houses, it was very common to call them a 2 up, 2 down, right? Like there's 2 bedrooms upstairs, and then there's kitchen and sitting room in the downstairs, right? And I was like, but this has got to be a 2 up that was renovated, because Nicola and Nat still live at home in you would guess their early 20s, right?
Yeah.
And so, and at the very end of the film, when Wendy has the confrontation with Nicola, you can see the remnants of the renovation on her door. So I was guessing right. And you can see the rooms are so small and tight together too,
Yeah, and not only like the renovation, but like the upstairs walls look like they were just a mess, right? Like they hadn't been sheetrocked, right?
Right.
It almost seemed like, he had stopped one of his projects, like midway upstairs. Him being the father, we'll get to him.
Well, he put probably a piece of like gypsum wall between his 2 daughters' room to make his daughters each have their own room, which is the equivalent of a closet. And, obviously it's a plot point that Nat can hear through the wall what's going on at night in Nicola's bedroom, which we will not reveal yet. And these are the things that happen to me because I get obsessed with the stupid little things. Like, you want to know what 20 Silk Cut is, what Nicola's begging her dad to buy her? Well, that's like some random British cigarette brand owned by a Japanese tobacco company, Silk Cut, right? And a 20 pack is the standard. And then I just keep going further and I look up, it's like, how much did that cost now? And it's almost 20 pounds for a pack of cigarettes now, which is like, holy shit. Thank God I never smoked and don't smoke now.
What is the other one you were saying? Those Casio LCD TVs.
Yeah. So in Patsy's second hustly attempts with Andy, and they're getting loaded in the pub. And he pulls out this bag and he has these teeny little televisions, these portable televisions, and they're actual Casio TV 400s, which were one of the early LCD TVs. It's literally a 2-inch diagonal LCD. It's so freaking tiny. It's super tiny. And then I looked up, you can get them on eBay for like $30. And I was like, this is something how I should spend my time and buy one of these things. And then we could turn the broadcaster back on because the digital television signal
awesome.
Wouldn't that be great?
And it would be great resolution at 2 inches. Come on. It'd be high res.
Yeah. And there's someone who put it like hacked connecting their like PlayStation to it or something like that. So they're playing PlayStation on a 2-inch screen.
Love it.
So that's how I spend too much time instead of production notes and interviews with Mike Leigh where I could actually learn about the making of the movie. We just didn't quite get to that. I'd rather learn more about a pig and a poke.
One of the things,
is what the caravan was too.
I did read about Mike Leigh, but I didn't include it in the notes. But I did read, and I found it interesting about his working style. One of the things he does is he doesn't really have a script. He has an idea for a story. And he gets funding, and then part of the filmmaking is putting people together and having them talk and improvise, and that's where the script comes from. It's them really talking and getting into the characters, and then from there, kind of like Cassavetes, I imagine, the script comes out of these characters really getting to know each other and interacting. And so early on, for a lot of his early projects, he couldn't get funding because people were like, I want to see a script. And he's like, I don't work from a script.
Yeah. Well, it worked because, this was his, I guess, most popular film at the time after his first two films, and it was his third one. And it was funny. So I was finally like, okay, I'll try to listen to this interview with him. But then you popped into the StreamYard room, and he had just talked about how he had fired his assistant director in the first day for trying to tell him how to do things. I was like, oh man, this would have been a good story to hear. Oops. Oh well.
The,
Well, instead, we'll just talk more about the actual family and the characters of this film.
and one of the things, he did a movie years before this. I think it was 7 years before this for BBC TV, I believe, or for a British television called Meantime. And it actually is one of the first films of Tim Roth and Gary Oldman who are in it together. And they're
Mm.
British punk rockers. And I think it's like
Oh wow.
83 or 84. And they're great in it. And you could see these two who go on and do a lot of projects together
Oh
from the
yeah.
80s and 90s, like the Tom Stoppard play, Rosencrantz and Guildenstern Are Dead, and other stuff like that.
Yeah.
But this is them very young. And
Yeah.
it's really,
Yeah.
it's kind of cool. And, obviously, Mike Leigh always has a great setting, but it's a very similar film in some ways to Life is Sweet in terms of the setting with the family. Very
Yeah.
similar. So this is
Yeah.
a recurring part of Mike Leigh's vision of Britain during the Thatcher years and post Thatcher years, and how to understand that politic is often through the family.
Yeah, and we've already done Muriel's Wedding, and likewise, it was so fun to see a very young Tony Collette. But PJ Hogan, who directed that, in 1995, speaks specifically, as we mentioned in that podcast, he wanted to make a Mike Leigh film, but in Australia, right?
Yeah.
And so, obviously, Mike Leigh has this import on what it means to tell a story of the working class and the family in particular. And so this is the classic film that I love the most, Show Me a World I Don't Know Well, which causes me to look up things like Silk Cut, Pilgrim Poke, and Edith Piaf, and I'm in. Like I want to see, and honestly, at times, like not a lot has to happen and not a lot happens here. Like I love my action movies and I'm a science fiction junkie, but when I'm in a world like this, and the same thing we had last week with the White Balloon, we're just enmeshed in this space in the lives of these people. It doesn't matter that a ton doesn't happen ultimately. And that's what so far these films are showing us a lot, primarily.
Yeah, and like you said, I mean, the primary space for this is that two up, two down. And like you've also said before, again and again, you love real spaces.
Yeah.
And this is a
Mhm.
real space. Like you're in a particular part of
Sure.
London, you're in a particular neighborhood, and you
Mhm.
feel that. Like
Yeah.
I really enjoy that about Mike Leigh's films, and he does that very well. And he really puts you in the space of the world. And it's interesting, just like you said, like it's a different kind of world building, but it is a world building. We're doing international films. And obviously, with the first two we've done, which is Australia and Britain, we have
No,
some.
Australia and Iran.
I'm sorry, Australia and Iran, and then now we're going to Britain. But Australia and Britain, we have some of the language, so that's not
Yeah.
completely alien like it was with the Iranian film. But at the same time, they're completely alien worlds for many Americans. And that's interesting.
Mhm.
Like, not only,
Yeah. Sure.
I would not only argue alien worlds, but compared to the Hollywood fare at this time, alien topics like
Mm.
class, right? I mean,
Yeah.
class does get dealt with in American film, but often with documentaries like Barbara Koppel and stuff like that. Very
Mm.
rarely are we dealing with class like someone like Ken Loach or Mike Leigh are dealing with in the 80s and 90s in Britain. So that's a really refreshing piece, and is a piece of that international cinema of the 90s that we're trying to really dig in on. Thank you
Yeah.
very much
Yeah. So the
for
two up, two
letting me
down.
talk.
Yeah, the three up, two down. Ultimately, House is the home of Wendy and Andy, married since they were 16 because someone got in trouble getting pregnant, and had to delay their life with their daughters, Natalie and Nicola, twins. And so you got two. Why continue and have more? You're all set. Perfect family. And there's a lot of doting over. And this is one of the themes of the film, is like this idea of family and relationships and your partner and what you imagine it life is going to be like, and then what life really is. And well, there you go, which is the quote from Wendy as she and her husband are going to sleep one night. It's like this is what we are, and this is what we have. And they take it day by day with a lot of humor. Like, in the bond between Wendy and Andy is built around constantly making jokes. And it's very much, you can think, it made me think of Roseanne over and over and over again, the show, and the John Goodman and Roseanne Barr characters that are just like their entire life is stress and struggle financially primarily, or their kids misbehaving, or just being kids that have struggles, and they would just try to laugh their way through all of it, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this endears me to this movie, is like
Yeah.
watching a family use humor as a way to protect themselves from all of those struggles that any given family will feel. And I come
Right.
from a family that valued humor above everything, because that was the best way to deal with all the fucked up shit that happened to us as we were growing up. Yeah.
Yeah. And it starts really from the beginning, and it presents Andy is very much a Ralph Cramden, like honeymooner styled husband who has his dreams and has his projects that he started and never stopped. It's like from the beginning, it's the what is it, the front porch, the back
Yeah.
patio, the bathroom tiles, the guitar repair. It's like every little thing he enthusiastically, I'll just get that done in a lickety split next tomorrow. And this is very much part of their relationship, because Wendy is like, ha ha hardy har har, in a million years, when pigs fly, I've heard that one before. And it goes on and on that way, right?
Totally. And there's even a scene at the table when it's Wendy, him, and the daughter, not Nicola, but Natalie.
Yeah.
Or maybe it's Nicola. Who's the plumber?
Nat.
Nat. So Nat is there, and Nat's like, I can get you grout. I can
Yeah.
get you waterproof grout. And she's like going on with all the things she could get him. And he's like,
She's
are you
a
sure it's
plumber.
waterproof? Yeah. Are you sure it's waterproof? Are you? And like, he's doing everything he can. It's so well done to not
Yeah.
have to get what he needs to finish the job, because part of his joy is thinking about the job. Doing the job
Yeah.
is a nightmare for him. He just wants to
No.
go in his shed and kind of pick up the little weird guitar that he got that doesn't have isn't completely rebuilt, and say, "Oh, one day I'll rebuild this, and I found
Yep.
this." And he's a dreamer. He's a really
He totally
he's
is.
a great character, because you immediately fall in love with him. He's nice. He's funny. It's Jim
Yeah.
Broadbent at a very
Jim
young,
Broadbent. Yeah. Yeah.
just really, I don't know. He's a wonderful character, as is Wendy.
Yeah, and so it's through like much of the early part of the film is framed through Jim's, and the thing is, like, you could imagine Mike Leigh or another director, not Mike Leigh, would turn this into a story about Jim Broadbent's character and the man he should have been, right? Which would be a much more American film. It's like the struggle of the man who should have had all his opportunities were taken away from him, and I could have been the one, kind of character that we are presented with over and over again here. No, he's just this person who exists in this space. And you could also see Wendy she's a nag, but she's a kind nag. She's just like, it's an agreement in their relationship that is known. And, that's why, it's kind of pitched ahead here, but there's a scene where it's just them in bed, very tight on just the two of them. It's a two shot, just very close on both of them. There's no context shot for this and introducing how they got into bed together. And they're just talking out the day and what mattered and what didn't matter. And he falls asleep in the middle of the conversation too. And she's like, he blurts out buttered muffins in a dream. And she's like, what? And then she realizes he's asleep. And I just love that. I love it's like
Yeah.
a clear, defined relationship. and then it's going to drift into how they relate to their daughters at the same time. But first, we have to flesh out, I think,
Yes.
uh, uh, Jim Broadbent's Andy a bit more with his big Ralph Crandom dream, which is
I mean, he
he gets
works. Let's
hustled.
set him up. So yeah, he
Yeah,
gets
let's have
hustled.
okay.
But
Go
like,
ahead.
if we set him up a little bit, like, here's a guy. He's a cook at a commercial kitchen, and he seems very competent in what he does. But he
Yep.
communicates to his family again and again that it's boring. It's the same thing every day, and all he
Yep.
starts to focus on really is just preventing people from having workplace injuries. And you see him kind of go into his office and open the paper, and like
Yeah.
he's bored. Like he's not moving anywhere. He has nothing to aspire to. And he's doing it for very real reasons to support his
And he's good
family.
at it too. Like I love how they show
Absolutely.
him as very competent. He like circles this giant industrial kitchen, makes conversation by name with everybody in there, and is encouraging but still direct about things that needs to be fixed. But yeah, you keep going.
No, I mean, absolutely. And that's put on one side. On the other side is, he is a cook, and there's this he has this friend who's a ne'er-do-well, it seems,
Oh,
Patsy,
Patsy,
who
the man with
comes
the LCD TVs.
exactly, who comes to him and knows that Jim is a potential target, seemingly, or Andy is a potential target,
Yeah.
and so essentially comes to him with the next kind of element of his dream that he can
Yep.
have, for
Mhm.
only 400 pounds. And it's this complete nightmare of a Winnebago turned into a food truck. Like it's like a food
Yeah.
truck that kind of was
Yeah.
all the rage here in America, or there in America in the last 10 years, and it's kind of
Mhm.
catching on here in Italy right now. But like it's the most like ghetto food truck you can imagine.
Yeah, it's rusty. It's the inside. It's like does the grill even work? He calls it a griddle, which is I'm sure is a Britishism right there. And yeah, it's like basically a tow caravan that was, a family like getaway and go camping vehicle that's been converted into a food truck. And Andy is justifiably at first like, this is a piece of dog shit, but Patsy knows how to hook him. And the funny thing is, to say a little bit more, when Patsy shows up at the front door, he's in a suit, and he's drunk because he's been at the pub. And, he rings the bell, and Nicola could answer the door, and she refuses, which, is understandable once we get to know more about Patsy. And she's like, stay away, weird men. I don't trust you. And so yeah, he hustles him, and he hustles him good for 425 pounds for this dog shit. And it's wonderful because when he brings it home, Wendy, you could imagine he doesn't say the amount of money. It doesn't the amount of money kind of she tries to bully it out of Patsy, Wendy does. And he's like, that's not for me to
I
say.
love it. Yeah. And Patsy's played great. He played wonderfully by Stephen Rea, who who
Yeah.
they made famous worldwide by The Crying Game a couple of years later. But like, it is a great relationship because Wendy is like, come on, and the kids come and they're like, oh my God, it's atrocious. It's the ugliest
It's
thing I've
it's
ever seen.
it's ecologically unsound is Nicola, and then and that more simply, it's embarrassing.
It's embarrassing. And the thing is you've already been set up with Andy to know that he's got all of these undone projects. And so
Yes.
this is like an undone project, right, of a new scale. But whether it
Literally.
is the same as something of like, a guitar without a head, or I don't know, what do you call that thing of the guitar you do the frets?
We're not music players.
No. So
Yeah.
whatever that is where you touch the frets
Bridge?
on the
Is
guitar,
that
the
it?
bridge, maybe there it is.
Yeah.
Whatever it is, you get the idea. The part that comes out of the bass of the guitar, that's not there. So that's a project. Or doing grout, that's a project.
Yeah.
But this thing seems like a baby, right? Like it's different.
Yeah. No, it's the neck. I looked up guitar body
Thank you.
parts.
Neck.
It had no neck. And yeah, because this becomes part of the conversation with Wendy too, is like, this is his, it's not just like, oh, I'm going to do something to fix the house and dot her around. This is a fantasy of being my own man, not having to do the drudgery job at the commercial kitchen, to actually make a direct relationship with the food I create, with the people that eat it, and making money and making a living, and imagining I'm going to start this by doing it on weekends, and then if it goes well, I'll be able to quit the job. And Wendy is like always pushing him to pump the brakes. Like, and there's this great line she talks about. It's like, well, if you get on the pitch with some other, on someone, you get on somebody else's pitch with this thing, basically someone else's lot. And she also mentions that, you need a license. He's like, what?
And it's interesting too, because like, you don't want to talk someone who has a dream out of the dream.
No.
But at what part do you say, like, I've also got to be honest with you about what you're getting into?
Yeah.
And there's that kind of interesting piece, like the family's trying to be honest with him. At the same time, they're also, somewhat entertaining it. And they also know it means a lot to him. So it's a very complicated thing. Even when a friend comes to you and they say, I have a new idea or whatever, like, at what point do you say, that's great, go do it, rah, rah, rah. And then you're also like, have you thought about this, this, and this? Like, you don't want to be a freaking buzzkill, but you also want them to not get in over their head.
And this is back to that night, they, in this scene in bed, Wendy's literally like, well, we could always revert it back to a family van and go camping.
Exactly.
And he's like, yeah, good idea. Like, he's already lessening the dream just in case, which is sad, but honest. And the allowance in a lived relationship, and that's what I ultimately love, is like, this is a very lived relationship. It's not because of the way that they surrender to one another's, whoever they are. Like, it's like, I am who I am, and it's not like allowing him to be a jerk, because he's not. They're both incredibly lovely to one another, and that's what makes it okay. Like, we've already mentioned how important humor is, and one of my favorite early moments is like, we're going to get into this old family friend, Aubrey, who's starting his own restaurant, by the way, and has some money somehow because he's rented a place to start it. And his waitress slips out to Poland, Czech
Republic, right? That's right.
Republic,
she goes to Czech Republic.
Prague. Is that in Poland?
Is that in Poland? That's right. They ask. No, I think Czech is in Czechoslovakia, they say.
And Wendy volunteers to take over as the waitress, but I forgot my point. So basically, it's the idea is, they know it's not going to necessarily, it's about the relationship, and how lived in it is in, this is what it is. So she's getting ready for the night of being a waitress, and she's going through her clothes. What should I wear? What should I wear? And as she goes through her clothes, she and her husband are just laughing out loud at every single thing she pulls out, because they're remembering, you remember, it's basically like a remember when moment, basically.
Totally.
There's this pink frilly like fuzzy top, and they're like cackling tremendously over like what she was that night, and however young she was in her years at the time when she was wearing it. And that's what's so wonderful about it in my mind, is like, that's a lived-in relationship. They don't even have to spell out the story. They just laugh about it, and that's what matters, and they show that relationship so easily.
Yeah, I agree with you. And then Nat also, so you have the two daughters, right? And you have Nat and Nicola. And Nat is often with them and laughing with them and has some of their humor and kind of plays, whereas Nicola is really struggling with her family and is separate. And this is a kind of ongoing dynamic, because you establish like, you have these two parents who are really tight. And while the father's dreaming of what it is, we learn about Wendy that we see her in at least two different jobs. She's got this job in the beginning where she's dancing with kids, which is so great.
It's so funny. Yeah.
What a great scene.
Yeah,
and
it's
then,
like it's the actual community dance center, actually, of the town that they landed in for the filming of the movie.
And you can tell because the kids are all trying not to look at the camera, and she's just with them. It's a beautiful scene. And then there's another scene where she's selling kids' clothes, to this thing. And I love it because the patron she's trying to sell to is like, I don't think my kid would wear that. Like this is crap clothes. And Wendy's like, no, 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 no. It will look great on them. And the
He's
patron's
gonna be
like,
a boxer. He's not a girly boy. He's a boy's boy.
exactly. So it's just, it sets her up. Like she's hustling. Like
Yep.
she's doing what
Mhm.
she needs to do for the family as well. And while she wants Andy to dream, there's also some real fiscal realities that they're up against. And that, like, there is that 400 pounds, which maybe sounds like nothing in our time, probably was a ton of money for a family that's trying to make it. You know what I
Oh
mean?
yeah. I'm sure. Like today, I don't have my inflation calculator up and ready right now, but I guarantee it's in the thousands,
Yeah.
especially with the conversion. So yeah, I think that you're in a situation where you're in a world where we have these two daughters who clearly are also they're living at home because they're financially not ready yet, right?
Yeah.
One is more than not ready because who do you want to talk about, Nat or Nicola first? Who do you think
Let's start
is
with Nat.
okay? So Nat is, like we've already said, she's a complete opposite of her sister, and we're going to learn in a bit why, because she's got a job and Nicola doesn't, and she's out there. She's a plumber, and she can hang with her family. She's like the supportive one. She gets their sense of humor, but she's also a little more dry and oblique, where her parents are like constantly cackling, right?
Yeah, totally.
And and you know, she's trying to please the family that she knows there's struggles going on. But she's not this person who's not independent at the same time. She is shown looking through this magazine, and it's really disturbing because she's looking at this magazine of America, and it's New York City, and we see these two images of the Twin Towers, which is like fucking nuts to
Yeah.
anybody who's like myself, who was here when it happened in New York City. Um, but she's part of the fabric of the father and mother very much. One of my favorite moments with her is she's in the backyard with her mom, having just set up the janky plastic deck chairs and the umbrella that slides down the center of the metal table. You know what I mean?
Sure.
And and they're talking about Nicola, and no, she's talking about she wants a cat. And her mother's like, "Why the hell do you want a cat?" And she's like, "Yeah, what? Right? Why do I want a cat? Why did I even think of that?" And then her mom's like, "Maybe you should get a Rottweiler. We should get a Rottweiler." And she's like, "Yeah, yeah, Rottweiler." And then her mom's like, "Yeah, it could eat Nicola." And Natalie's like, "Maybe a crocodile then." So
Crocodile,
she's like,
exactly.
she's escalating the humor and taking the discord that exists between her parents and her sister is a big part of she's trying to help them navigate the issues that Nicola is having. That's a big part of like Nat's role, as well as being this, stable presence.
Yeah, she's a great character. She's stable. She goes out. You see, she plays pool with her friends. You see her at
Yeah.
work putting in a radiator, and she's joking around with the guy who's in the other room doing it. Like, she's just a character that, like, is perfectly said. You can rely on. Like, her parents rely on her. Like, she's a rock for them because they're really struggling with Nicola. And Nicola's
Yeah.
a fascinating character because, Nicola was in college, dropped out, obviously is a smart woman, but also is struggling with, self image, with her sense of her body, with how she looks, and with who she is in general. We learn quickly that she has bulimia, that she's gouging on these candy bars and
Gorging.
all this
Yeah. Yeah.
gorging, right? So she's gorging on them and then throwing them up. And Nat hears her through that thin wall that you picked up on, which I didn't even think about that, but that's great. And she's a woman who's struggling, and not beyond that, we start to see her love life is really, I would say, problematic and a little
Yeah.
bit hard to watch. I wish I'd not seen that scene. Um, but
No
like,
one wants Nutella after that scene.
no, it's just terrible. Um, so but you're not sure what to do with her because she's not very nice to her family.
Well, at the same time, she's kind of an archetype at first, before you really start to key in on her, mannerisms and discomfort with herself. Like she has this exaggerated voice, but it's
Oh
a
my God.
voice of like of Generation X discontent, and she's very politically motivated. Bollocks to the poll tax T-shirt, and all of her ways of trashing her siblings and her, like when Andy tries to say that the caravan's an investment, she's like, Tory,
Tori,
and
totally.
or another one is when Natalie's talking about going to America and she tries to make a joke about being Yank. She doesn't want to hear it. She just calls her a racist. And there's again and again and again, she's finding these ways to say, like, I'm not going to be exploited like dad was and all this kind of stuff. I'm like down with the politique, if you will. So you think of her as this politically active character in some mind, because we also get a sense that she's smart because she's quick with the whip, if you will, with her
Yeah.
wittiness, right? But she has a very frightening relationship with men, in
Yeah.
particular the way that Aubrey tries to compliment her, but Aubrey also is a little creepy, and
Aubrey's a whole nother character.
yeah, and yeah, it becomes really important, and we'll get. I don't want to jump to where the big confrontation happens, and even in confrontation, this is back to Wendy with Nicola and trying to try to have it out with her, if you will, at some point at the end. But we're not going to get there. She just doesn't. She is this very deeply uncomfortable character. She has like the physical tics. Like there's this one moment where
Yeah.
she's shoving her hands through under her shirt and through the neck of her collar of a t-shirt, and you're really, at first, you're just kind of thinking she's like kind of off kiltered, constantly trying to harass her sister and her dad for cigarettes because she's chain smoking the entire time throughout the movie as well. And she has no
God
money.
bless the
And
early
yeah,
90s, man.
I know. But the more and more we get into it, and as you say, eventually it's very explicit when there's the bulimia scene in her bedroom.
Yeah.
Then you're like, okay, oh, this is really rough. And this is something the family has been trying to navigate without, figuring out how to confront her directly.
Yeah, and then it's interesting too because here you have these two sisters, right? And there's a moment when the parents are talking and where Andy says, "Thank God they're not identical." Talking about the
Yeah.
difficulty they have
That's
with.
the bedroom scene again at night. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Which I really love that those bedroom scenes because
Yeah.
like any parents, like me and Antonella, have our moments. It's usually not at night. We're usually too tired after the movie we watch, but in the morning, that's where we spend our time assessing our children and assessing our role as parents and always thinking, where did we fuck up? Why didn't we do better? Like it's a whole thing. Like that would be that. So rather than at the bedroom at night, it would be in the morning. But those were really touching scenes to me because as a parent now, I really deeply related to that. Like,
Mm,
when you're a parent, all you want to do is see your kids not in pain, not
yeah,
struggling, and
I
feeling
know.
a sense of self-worth and that they're ready to go out. And like that's your sense. And so whenever that falters, you turn on yourself. And that's so hard. And he really captured that beautifully in this movie.
Yeah, yeah. It's so funny because right now, as we're speaking, like I'm still navigating. I'm getting a call from the cable technician who's trying to install cable at my son's new apartment. We just moved him in yesterday. It was a lot of, or Wednesday, and I can't contact him, my son, and he's like, "Why? Where are you? This guy's at your front door," and his phone's like going directly to voicemail, like it's not doing anything. And he finally calls me over FaceTime from a cafe, and he's talking about, I was on my way home last night and I was biking and I was trying to get to work, and then your heart just starts to sink further and
Yeah.
further and further until for him the big moment is he's trying to tell me, oh, my phone literally flew off the bridge, the pedestrian bridge, from Manhattan to Queens. And I'm worried he's like, he flew off the bridge and he's like,
Exactly.
but he did wipe out. And you're like, I don't care about your fucking phone.
Yeah.
as long as you're okay. And that's ultimately where this movie goes to with Wendy and Nicola. And, we can jump to it. There's a lot of backup stuff to talk about, but it's worth because we're talking so much about Nicola. Nicola is she literally never leaves the house the entire movie.
No.
Okay.
That's right.
And, and, you know, Wendy has coming. It's so interesting because she's in work clothes. We don't know what job she's come from, but she's home in the middle of the day, and Nicola is yet again in her bedroom and complaining, and they get into it while Wendy is vacuuming. She's doing domestic chores around the house in her work outfit, so she's all made up, and she's playing the role of mom and homemaker, the classic double duty thing, while her like 20 something daughter is sitting in her bed doing nothing and being super, emo angsty, if you will. And it leads to this conversation where she's finally poking at her, as you get a sense that she's already, because they talk about how Nicola, Wendy has described in this bed scene over and over as one of the many things. She doesn't like who she becomes when she talks to her daughter, right? Because she feels herself coming undone. And
Yeah.
so we finally get to see one of these moments of finally coming undone, and she's saying like, you're giving up, basically. You can't give up. And she tries to bark back about their dad, like he's the one who's an idiot and spending all their money on this stupid caravan. And she's like, and saying he's greedy for doing it. Nicholas says this, and Wendy's like, whoa, 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 he's flawed. I know he's flawed, and it may be a mistake, but this represents, as we've already described, him still dreaming. It's the opposite of that. He is not giving up, you know and it finally gets to it's not like this big moment either. Mike Leigh
No.
doesn't, it's not like it's all solved and there's big hugs and stuff like this. She's just like, we don't hate you, we actually love you, okay,
Yeah.
no matter how horrible you are. And so you get this sense like it's a big moment, but it's still made small in this way that life's moments are actually just small, no matter how, like just Wyatt telling me thank God he didn't fucking go over the bridge, it was just his stupid phone.
Yeah. And those feelings, like you said, of deep dread at the
Yeah.
sense, like, and there's this, one of the things Wendy does
I'm missing,
unbelievably
yeah, yeah, you
in
say the
this
one thing
scene.
she said, I forgot. Yeah, I
I mean,
forgot.
she
Yeah,
does so brilliantly in this scene is she talks about, look, you almost died.
yeah,
You were 2 weeks away, according to the doctor, of, putting yourself in death's door because you're not eating and you're not taking
right.
care of yourself and you're giving up. And that you get a little bit of the backstory. She was in the
Mm,
hospital. The parents kind of know, but it's also very true to a family dynamic is no one's really taking it on head on, right?
right.
They're trying
Yeah,
to kind of figure out the equilibrium and live amongst each other
yeah,
and still be happy and joking and all that. But underneath that, there is some real unhappiness, especially with Nicola. And the mother's kind of blowing up at her is because there are moments, but she can't not face what's happening to her because she's again putting herself in harm's way. She's again, like we said, when you see your kid unhappy or unhealthy or walking into a situation that's potentially dangerous, you can't help but everything be drained out of you. And you feel like, I mean, there's nothing more in my mind familial than that sense of dread that something's happening to those loved ones. And this movie does that so brilliantly and so almost effortlessly by showing you a cross section of this family trying to figure out that dynamic, but knowing that sooner or later they're going to have to face the hard realities that one of their kids is really sick.
yeah. And it is one of those things that it's kind of just shocking, but so true how a family doesn't confront it head on.
Yeah.
And even her sister tries at the very end, and it literally ends on this. And we're not even done with this movie, but we're talking about some
No.
of the endings things. Is how you know she can't fix it. Neither of them can fix it, but neither of them also know how. None of them know how to like directly confront it, use the words. I mean, Nat is the only one at the very end that kind of does. Um, but it isn't something that's easy for this type of family that doesn't have the means to take the time and the effort and like go to health services, whatever that looks like in the UK, and navigate that system, which is probably hard and complicated, and it wouldn't be easy. And it's only when it's an emergency, almost dying, that you finally push yourself into that, which is so true with so many families that don't have the means. In the means here ultimately is simply most of the time is time. It's not
Yeah.
even like a lot of money, because these kind of things just take enormous amounts of energy and time to navigate systems that are fairly unforgiving unless it's an absolute you're dying emergency, you
And
know?
they won't even name it. You know, we've named
Yeah.
it bulimia, but it never gets named in the movie. And I think
No.
there's a certain amount of stigma that comes with it. But like, you know, you can also see, like you said, her shaking hands and the way in which she's acting. It's not just her being difficult, it's
No.
her deeply, deeply struggling. And whether
Mhm.
that's a struggle with her place in the family, with her place in the world, with, you know, how she recognizes self-worth or whatever that is. I mean, it really comes from like kind of a joyous comedy about this, you know, working class family to this deep kind of dive into what does a family do to kind of protect itself and to help those around it not fall off the edge, so to speak. It's Mike. I love Mike Leigh. I'm a huge Mike Leigh fan. My first
Yeah.
Mike Leigh movie was Naked in '93, and I saw it in LA. And then I have since seen pretty much all of his movies. And I just think he's like Britain's best. I think he's a wonderful director, and he
Mhm.
always comes back to the family. For him, he's not like Ken Loach, who's another kind of UK director who really looks at like the larger political forces that put the working class in the situation they are. Like he did recent film about like a an Amazon driver of all things. Whereas this is a film where that is all looked at through the compassionate dynamics of a family. And like you see the broader UK political picture through just the simple interactions of a family trying to make it. And I love the way he's able to do that, to bring the politics back to the family. And that means he doesn't have to be didactic and over the top and like take this big, like whether it's liberal or conservative or whatever, he doesn't have to take those broad stroke arguments. He just has to look at what it's doing to people.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, I think what I can't help but come back to is how, unsurprisingly, Wendy is like the center point of the whole thing. You know, like it all goes through her, and we should bring up, just for the fun of it, is her family old friend Aubrey, who's played by Timothy Spall, and the way and the reason you get a sense the way he presents himself, and the way he presents himself, he just drives up, Andy is off on his adventure to look at
Yeah,
the
yeah,
caravan.
cool, cool,
Yeah.
cool, yeah. What a fucking weird character. Yeah,
And
man.
just the
Yeah,
way
yeah.
he shows up in these like trainers, and he's got this San Francisco Giants like, jacket, and is this colorful cap that's too small for his big head,
And he has
and it's
your
got a big
glasses.
belly.
He has your
Yeah,
red glasses.
I know.
You're
I'm like a
Aubrey right
yeah,
now.
cool. Right, right, right. If I had a little more color going on. And he's bouncing back and forth in his hands a pineapple of all things. It's
That's
just
right.
and you're just like, who the hell is this guy? And this is someone, what's interesting is this is someone Nicola's willing to let through the door. She would not answer the door
Patsy.
for Patsy, understandably, but for Aubrey's been around. You get a sense that Aubrey's around all the time, right? He's
Yeah.
a fixture in the living room, in the way that he exists in that space. He's very comfortable. But the funny thing is, just back to like Nicola's discomfort, she's just sitting in the living room with him, and Aubrey is like, "Where's your mom?" And she's like, "She's not here." Meanwhile, she's in the backyard with Nat,
Yeah.
right? And so, we can't tell in the early part of the film. It's like, is this Nicola showing interest in Aubrey a bit,
It
or
seemed that way, right?
yeah, 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 and because he is a character, and you get a sense that Nicola's attention to things that are unusual in that regard would be an interest to her. and they're just chatting away, and he's like a little creepy, but kind at the same time, kind of complimenting her until he moves towards complimenting her knees. And you're just like, dude, come on. You're like 15 years older than her. Okay. And this is your old friend's daughter. And it's weird because in a later scene when Aubrey's getting drunk inside his own restaurant, he keeps repeating Nicola's name. And you're like,
He
ew.
does, yeah.
um, so he's this fiction.
That doesn't
He's this
stop him though from making a pass at Nicola's mom. So
No, and that's the thing. And so Wendy is the center of this because Wendy is the one who's the old friends. You get a sense with Aubrey again, not explained at all, which is great. I love movies that don't need to tell you who people are and what they mean to a character as they walk in the room. You
yeah,
know, and so Aubrey eventually Wendy comes in and says, "Hey, what's up?" and like gets mad at Nicola, gets at her for a moment. But at the same time, we learn Aubrey's starting a restaurant, and it's like, oh, we got a bunch of food restaurateurs here in this family going on and friends. But he is an odd bird, and his restaurant is an effing disaster. But what's so great is Andy and Wendy go on a little trip to visit his restaurant. It's the beginning of all the weird scenes that happen in this movie.
When Timothy Spall's character Aubrey starts to dictate what the menu is, it's almost like I feel like gaggy. It's disgusting.
Yeah.
One meal or one offering entree is worse than the next. It is completely horrible. Me and Antonella love watching this film just to hear how disgusting this menu is. Oh.
And there, and that was funny. It's like, this was a brief Wikipedia production note. They said that they actually were riffing on these ideas for all these entrees and appetizers that were like lambs, and there's an actual lamb's tongue he's fiddling with around with in front of the sous chef, and it's so disgusting. And oh my god. And but they talk to an actual chef and say, like, is this plausible? And they're like, yes, gross, but yes, you could do it. So but this is part of it, is like Aubrey is this character, and his waitress bails on him to Prague, and he talks about it. It's like, oh, if I ever see her again, I'm cool. And he keeps it. It's his fantasy too. And you're right. The idea of dreams and fantasies of like escape, and this is Aubrey's dream of like, he's a magician. He's magic. He's going to be able to escape his middle class identity or lower class identity.
I think so. Working class, at least, right?
Working class identity. And he wants to appeal to, in the middle of a working class town, a high clientele, that has a special palate that only could be appreciated by him. But it's a disaster in the making. And the funniest thing is, as soon as he walks into the back kitchen, and Wendy and Andy have been all compliments. As soon as he walks away, they're like, disaster. Oh my God, what are we going to
do? He's never going to pull it together. And the thing is he has a place. It's somewhat furnished. Like, he's almost there. He's got this weird plastic like dinosaur and it's like, there's just weird things. But at the same time, Antonella's like, he must have had some money, because like he put something into this, but then he just pisses it away at the end, right? It's just weird. It's almost like he doesn't want to have that success.
No, and that it's kind of the inevitability, I guess, that Mike Leigh's playing with of the situation of working class. Like, they have some things together, but they never have the full package together. Like, Aubrey is able to build this restaurant and order all this food and make these concoctions that he wants to serve, but he never makes a physical menu. He never advertises the restaurant's opening. He loses his waitress. He has this bizarre relationship with his sous chef, who
looks like that monster from Gothic, if you've ever seen that, by Ken Russell. She's just like with that white chef hat and her nose, she just looks surreal. She is such a strange looking figure.
And she's so quiet and awkward at the same time.
And the thing is she's waiting. She's like, he's bombed. He rips apart his restaurant. He's a mess. And then Wendy's like, I'm leaving you. You're a you're a lost cause. And then she tells the sous chef to come with her, and she's like, come on, get ready, I'll drive you home, come on. She's like, but we were going to go get hamburgers.
Chips. Yeah.
Chips, yeah. We were going to
Yeah.
go get chips. And it's like, here they are in this highfalutin restaurant trying to kind of, cater to the rich and famous. And they just want to eat fish and chips.
Yeah. You're a bunch of wankers, basically. He yells out in front of his own restaurant to the community as he's too drunk with no one having showed up on opening night. But at the same time, he's like thrown himself at Aubrey's thrown himself at his best friend, or old friend, Wendy. And it's like, marry me. And it's like, oh, I don't care if you're married already. Marry me still. And Wendy's like grappling with this and handling this. And she gets out of there only to come home to her own husband who's passed out drunk in the caravan, right? He didn't even make it in the house. He got into the caravan, and when Wendy finds her husband like passed out in the caravan, and he pops up and he's like, oh, just like arranging things, just cleaning up here, trying to immediately pretend like he was doing something. And this is the only moment where Wendy kind of comes undone, and Nat also again shows her state in the family. Is Nat's the one who helps her mother pull her drunk husband and Nat's drunk father up the stairwell, right? And and in another director's hands, this would turn violent, right?
Yeah,
And
exactly. It would go bad.
yeah, it would go bad, and it doesn't, and it's kind of a surprise that it doesn't, even though Wendy gets very frustrated, and then it just snaps to the next morning, and it's Wendy and Andy back in bed, but Andy's getting ready for work, and Wendy's having her tea while sitting in bed, and it's like the night before never happens.
And he jokes. He's like, I'm going to be home late tonight. And she's like, why? He's like, I'm going out with Patsy again. And she's like, what? And that's the joke. Exactly.
Yeah.
The worst part of that whole scene is learning that they have a rug right next to the toilet that he might piss on.
Or is it just from one of those oh God, I have this old Sears 70s catalog. This is
Oh
again,
my God.
random
Rugs in
holes.
bathrooms are the
How about
best.
wall-to-wall carpeted bathrooms that were
Absolutely.
advertised in these 70s catalogs?
Think
Sears
about
catalogs.
those. Oh
It's
my
amazing.
God.
With shag carpet.
It's
Oh
the
my
best.
God. Oh,
What were we thinking in the 70s? It was such a great time. But yeah, so I mean, Wendy is definitely the rock. But even Wendy, and that's, I mean, to Mike Leigh's credit, like no character is outside the struggles of what any given life will throw their way, and they all deal with it differently, and they all deal with it according to who they are. But I mean, it's almost like you spend time with a family and struggle with them for this short time through their life. And you're like, oh my God, that could be a great movie if told in a very like honest, compassionate way.
Yeah. And in the fact that they're not unrelenting, like it's not like, as you've already described, Wendy is not like, she has her limits ultimately, right?
Yeah.
Like she's quick to laugh and eventually you would think it's in an annoying way. Like it'd be like a mother-in-law. You're like, oh my God, please, can you just stop that cackle? But it's not, but to her, she has her fun. She's had her fun. Like she wore pink frilly outfits, and probably, and she imagined, and this is the thing, it's back to the bedroom. She imagined she and her and Andy, they would go to the disco with the girls, and they'd have their boyfriends, and they'd have a time. And that's where she says, well, there you go. That's not what it turned out to be.
Exactly.
And that's what ultimately, this is light, as we've mentioned in the past, so many good movies show how life gets in the way, and it doesn't have to destroy you. It's not like tragedy time, people are dying or murdering one another or anything like that.
And it's not like, and the title is interesting, right? Because, and we'll deal with other 90s movies, I'm sure, but the title Life is Sweet is like, it's not wrong. It's not trying to be ironic. No, life is just a nightmare. It's like, actually, at times, life is sweet. And the fact that they share this time together, you don't come away from this movie like, oh, I mean, you maybe think like, oh, it must be rough to be working class in Britain a little bit. But apart from that, you don't think like, oh, this poor abject family and this and that. Although I think Mike Leigh does border a little bit on the objection, but we could talk about that, especially with
Yeah.
Naked. But take another movie from America at this time that's trying to be independent. That movie, Happiness. That piece of shit movie, Happiness, where everything is
Oh yeah.
horrible and he's
Yeah.
a child molester, and that happiness is a real sardonic irony about actually everything is fucked up and everyone is
Yeah.
fucked up.
Yeah.
And I was like, you know what? I much prefer an honest kind of like looking at the world rather than this dark sheet you put on top of everything and pretend you're being
Mm.
intellectual and thoughtful, right? I
Similarly,
hated
it's
that
like
movie, Happiness.
it's
Hated
I did too. Even though we did Welcome to the Dollhouse and liked it, right?
it. I
Where
did.
it was
I kind of like that movie. I didn't like
okay.
that movie that much.
Well, you showed tolerance for me at
I
least. I
tried
like that
to
movie.
because I did it
Yeah.
one time and then I've gotten shit about it for the rest.
Well, I mean, the one that we both were very frustrated with, and is similar, is Kids, right? Where they're
Yeah.
similarly putting us into a world of people that are struggling tremendously, and there's a lot of non-actors in the film that are doing what they actually are doing, and we learn so much through the documentary about the actual kids, how much of assholes the director and the writer in effect were by taking advantage of it and exploiting
Yeah.
these people.
I mean, just think about the way that Larry Clark exploited the whole AIDS epidemic for that movie
Yeah,
and the whole
right.
idea of it. Like that to me is a very kind of, and I liked Kids actually as a movie in some ways. I liked the actors in it and the moments it created. I didn't like the
Mhm.
narrative because there really wasn't much one. But I think of Mike Leigh, it's like completely different, right? There's no exploitation in the same way. Characters are actually people, they're respected. You have pathos for them. Like, I don't know. It's a refreshing change. And I would like to see, like, where do you see that in US filmmaking in general when you come to a family in the
Yeah.
90s? Happiness is a perfect example for me of the worst of 90s filmmaking that's claimed to
Mm.
be independent, versus someone
Yeah.
like Mike Leigh, who's truly telling an independent story.
Yeah. Yeah, and, and it's amazing too because it's not like they're also trying to make them out as this big celebratory like success of a
No.
transformative family, right? Where they've survived and they'll go to the other side. No, it's they're not this big achieving family, and Andy's projects don't go anywhere, but he's good natured. He's not going to quit his job and get drunk every night, you
Yeah.
know.
And he's a dad who's there for them and makes them laugh. I mean, we didn't talk about the scene, and it's probably a good scene to kind of wrap it up with is,
Oh yeah.
so Andy does, apart from his dreams, he has these big dreams, right? And the best laid plans of mice and men. And then what happens? He slips on a spoon at his workplace after they've talked
Yeah.
about what a record he has for keeping the kitchen safe. And he freaks out like, who left this spoon? But he's in obvious pain.
He was right.
He was right. And he's in obvious pain. He broke his ankle. He's down
Yeah,
for the
yeah.
count. And then the next scene is Wendy getting the call and finding out, oh my God, he's all right. I'm glad. And then laughs.
And laughs. Yeah.
Like first she
Yeah.
establishes like everything's all right. And then she has a good laugh about it. And then they
Yeah.
come home, and the most endearing moment in the film, and it is when life is sweet in that family,
Yeah.
even for a Nicola who's still struggling, is like the family's together in that little living room.
Yeah, there it
And
is, right behind it if you're watching on the YouTube. Yeah.
absolutely. And he puts the royal leg up or the royal foot. I don't know what they
Yeah,
call it.
his royal leg propped up, yeah. And it's like the spoon becomes his royal scepter because Nat immediately and he immediately start making jokes about the spoon
Oh,
and
it's so
this
good.
historic spoon of 1975. It made its way across time, when you were only 6, Nat, to come and find its way under my foot and break my ankle.
I
And then
love
so
that.
he says, I must take this evil object. And Nat plays it up and she's like, we must display it prominently so we can all keep an eye on it. So they immediately hang the spoon, this big giant commercial kitchen steel spoon on top of a picture in the living room.
And they're a family. And
Yeah.
what is a family? I mean, a family is that moment of telling a story, of having a moment, if you will. And we know
Yeah.
now as our kids are getting old, how precious that is.
Yeah.
And just that memory
that they'll
and that
sit
laugh.
around with you too when you're older. Like when you get your kids
Oh my
as
God.
young adults to sit with you and actually relay stories, you're just like, this is the best fucking thing in the world, right?
Yeah, my son
Yeah.
was just back from Milan for a few days, and he's in and out. He's he's his own man now. He does his own things. But when I can capture him and sit him down and laugh with him, it is like gold to me.
Yeah. And there is a little bit of catharsis right after this too. This scene upstairs where Wendy is because no, it's not out. It's before this scene because when the royal leg is propped up, Nicola is doing what Nicola does. She's upstairs, right, alone, and doesn't want to come down, even though her dad's calling for her, of course, because she wants to be around his family when you're hurt. And there is this moment where Nicola finally gives a glimpse of reaching back out and says, "I just want to talk to you," to her mother. And then it leads to the first time in the entire film where all four of them are together. And this is the only shot in the entire film where all four are together, where early there's this shot of, as you described it, Nat and Wendy and Andy having dinner together. But because of her bulimia and the food disorders going on, she's allowed to and needs to sit and eat alone in the living room where she doesn't really eat, actually.
Yeah.
So this is the only shot, and he holds it to the very, very end to finally show the family together.
Yeah.
And
life is sweet at that moment, right? And
it really is, yeah.
And I think to your point of what you've been doing over the whole course of our 71 episodes is, you got into this habit of capturing these moments that try to distill the film, whether it's the well, there you go, or it's an image like this. And I think it's an interesting exercise to try and understand what the filmmaker is giving to us. And when they finally provide us the shot of a family, it's a fleeting moment. But it is a moment that all of us know who had families and kind of been in a similar situation, how amazing it is. And you can't let all the horror and all the concerns and all the other things that want to take over your freaking mind and your time stop that from being what it is. And I think you capture it really well from week to week with your images and with your quotes. And I appreciate that. But in particular, this picture kind of tells the story of this movie.
Yeah, that's very cool. Well, we're staying in Jim Groom's area. I don't know if we're going to stay in Europe for the next one, but we got some more international films set in from the 90s, whether they're set in the 90s or not. I don't remember exactly.
They are not. Our next film will not be set in the 90s, but it is from the 90s.
Okay, cool. All right. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Bye-bye.